Hello and welcome. My name is Raymond Ijoma and I'm a real estate entrepreneur as well as a property lawyer here in Nigeria. In this particular video, I think I should say that this is going to be one of the most important videos that we have done on this channel. And in this particular one, we are looking at 25 important questions you must ask whenever you are buying a property. This time around, we're not looking at land. We're saying these are the questions, very critical questions that you must ask whenever you are buying a property in Nigeria. Of course, you know that we are resident in Abuja, but we've done transactions in and out of Abuja, and we know for a fact, based on experience, that these are questions that are very critical in all of your real estate investment as it relates to properties. So, like I said, 25 questions, and that's a lot. That's a whole lot to talk about, to have a conversation around. We try as much as possible to explain the point. Where we just need to state the questions, we'll just state them and move on. I'll try as much as we can. If this video would have to be, if it's going to be too long, then we'll most likely will do a part 2 of this video. If not, just try a way to squeeze it into one video. It's a lot of values, a lot of content that you really need to pay attention to, and these questions are based on experience doing transactions, also not just doing the transaction but also doing the legal part of the real estate transactions. You get to know a lot about doing the transactions generally, and it is on the basis of that we are bringing this very important video to you. So yes, this video is brought to you by Fortreal Rei Ltd, a real estate company registered here in Nigeria, and we bring you the best of real estate investment in Nigeria. We educate you rightly so that you're aware of how to safely and rightly invest in Nigeria, specifically for us in Abuja, right? And then also we bring you investment opportunities, right? Both in land and in properties. Our goal for the land appreciation. Of course, appreciation also happens with properties, while our secondary goal for properties or additional goal for properties is rental income, right? We would like for your investment to bring you money to be appreciative, importantly, and also to bring you good returns, cash flow generally. You may want to consider subscribing to our channel, that is if you are yet to do so that you and also turn notifications so that you're notified whenever we post amazing content like this very one you want to watch. And I know you will like this video, so you can also click the like button already. All right, so let's get started. Where do we start from? Number one, what is the title on the land? This is a very important question, and as a matter of fact, should be the very first question that you are asking whenever you're looking at buying a property. From experience, people even really don't even ask this question as much as they should when they are buying just land, but it is even more common when you're buying a property, right? So most persons, they just, oh, the building is very fine, the road is on point, the house is mean, everything, the kitchen is big, every other thing makes sense. They basically just focus on the superficial, they focus on the physicality of the property, and they largely ignore the legality to that property. And as I've always said, it is the legality that determines whether it's going to be secure and sustainable. It is the legality that determines the sustainability of every investment you are making, whether in land or in properties, right? So if you focus just on the physical thing you are seeing and ignore the documentation of the property, then that becomes an issue. That really becomes an issue, right? So before you buy any property, before you invest in any property, you should definitely ask the question of what is the title on the land. And there are different circumstances, there are different issues and circumstances that come following your interest based on, because it's not, you have different title documents. I think we have a video on this channel that tells you different kinds of title and the different types of title document. Those are two different conversations, right? So the type of property you are buying per time will determine what you are looking at, what type of title you are looking at, or what type of title document you are looking at, or what type of title that you are looking at. And largely, the type or kind of title that you have will largely determine the type of title document that you'll be requesting for, right? So these are very important issues. I promise not to go into so much detail so that we are able to compress this into one video. So let's do number 2. Number two, are people living there already? Are you going to inherit the tenants, right? And this is important. We've had a situation where, thank God that we had to clarify. We thought we're dealing with professionals who knew or had an understanding of how this kind of thing plays out. When you're buying a property, generally, they inspected the property. Their lawyer inspected the property and saw that there were tenants there, and we made it clear to them that this tenant's property is, in rent is expiring to the social date. This one is expiring to so and so date, and they were like, okay, no problem. We didn't have any detailed conversation in that regard. At the end of purchasing the property, they started demanding that we should evict the tenant, and we clearly told them that it can't work that way. You bought and inherited the tenant. Anyway, to cut the story short, since we're trying to be as brief as possible, it wasn't possible for us to evict the tenants. First, you bought, you saw the tenants when you were buying, and then you've inherited them. So you have to take care of them based on the tenancy agreement that they already had with the previous owner. Right, so that's the legal issue, but it's important. So if you need, when you are buying the property, if there are tenants there, then you need to determine or check on the terms and conditions that are already existing. Are you inheriting the tenants, or you want them to evict the tenants before you buy? That has to be sorted out. Either way, that question is very important. Number three, what is the rental value of the property? So based on the fact that we talk a lot about investments and returns, that's why they call us the cash flow company, right? We usually have a lot of clients who are looking at buying properties through us for rental income purposes. So at that point, we would always have to determine and ascertain what is the rental income of that property. What is that property giving you every year? What is that property expected to give to you every year? Right. So that's a very important question. And then even if you're just buying it as a home, as it were, it's possible that your house could have a BQ, or you can build one there, and then just have somebody take it and then be using 1 million or 1.5 million or 2 million that you are using or you are getting from that tenant to take care of the entire house, or just take care of certain things in the house. And anyway, that's by the way. But the most important thing is, if you're looking at it for rentals, then you may want to ask the question of what is the rental income for this area. The first question you need to ask is, who is the owner of the land? Who are you buying from? Who is the developer? Now, this question is important because there are certain times that you are doing a transaction, or you have a company who is the face of what you are buying. At that point, you need to establish if they are a marketing company, or they are the developers, or they are the actual owners and developers of the property. You need to be able to define and ascertain this, because there are times when the agreement or the relationship between the person developing, the front person, and the actual owner of the land is actually on lease basis, and you are going to buy from them, right? This I don't want to mention any city. But basically, there's so many times when somebody gives another person a land to develop, and the developing of that land is sequel or based on a lease arrangement or a joint venture agreement that doesn't transfer ownership and interest to the developer. It automatically means that the developer doesn't also have the right to sell such property. At best, such properties can be rented out, right? So you need to understand the relationship between the person who is the front person for your transaction. Are they the developers? Are they the actual owners? Or are they just a marketing company? You need to ask that question. That is really, really important. And the fifth question you need to ask when buying a property in Nigeria is, what level am I getting the property? Is it semi-finished? Or first, is it carcass? Is it semi-finished, or it is finished? This question is really, really important, because to some companies, what is carcass can be the building, the structure without the roof. And of course, you know how much it will cost you to roof a house, right? So to some other companies, carcass could mean with a roof, with some wiring, with plastering. But to some others, plastering will not be involved. So you need to ascertain what is the definition of carcass to company A. Secondly, you need to understand or also determine what is semi-finished, right? For some companies, semi-finished includes painting, it includes tiling, right? It includes kitchen fixtures or certain other fixtures that can be in the house, right? And then you do the final ones yourself, right? And so some other companies, finished, also have their own definition. Finished could mean, in fact, there's even a should I say, an argument as to the difference between finished and furnished, right? So you need to understand what exactly the company is doing or having or handing over to you as sales, right? And let me also chip in here as a free legal advice that if you are looking at buying a furnished or finished apartment, depending on what your definition is, then it's very important that certain words and certain phraseologies are used in that title document or document that they are given to you as handover document for that property, so that the things you are also buying are also included. I mean, the fixtures, appurtenances, and all every that thing associated to the sale or purchase of that property. I think let's leave that for that. So the sixth question that you need to ask is, what is the security of the area? This is very important. Even though, in fact, even if it's going to be tenants that are going to live there, if the security doesn't make the place is not secure, then you're going to have issues getting people to rent your house. Or at best, even if they rent it, then they're going to be staying there maybe at best 1 year, and then they have to leave. So you need to look at the security of that area. Then importantly, if you're the one living there yourself, you also want to look at the security, of course. So how you're able to determine that: is there a police station close by? Is there a military barrack close by? What are the amenities or the government amenities generally, or the amenities that are there generally that will require security for them to be safe? So it means that if those amenities, or there's some kind of amenities that are there that will determine whether, I mean, if this place is here, then of course we expect that this environment is secure. Just for example, the airport road has some form of higher security for a place like Abuja, because of the presence of, especially the usage of that road by very important dignitaries, as it were, right? So I mean, also certain other, a lot of areas like that. That's as an example, right? So you need to look out for security generally. That's the point that I'm trying to make. The next question you need to ask is, what are the charges that apply after purchase? Now, there are charges that apply at the point of purchase. There are also charges that most definitely or most likely will apply after the purchase of the property. You need to determine if they are such that you have to throw to your tenant, or the ones that you've got. I mean, we had a transaction recently where representing or serving as a brokerage firm to the client, and one of the very important key phrases that we saw, or one of the important phrases that we saw, or key phrase that we saw in the document, took place in the document, was the fact that sale was subject to ancillary charges. Sale was subject to ancillary charges. If we were to go look at it beyond possibly the literal definition of that phrase, especially as a lawyer myself, I may be looking at it at the point of, or I may be interpreting it at the point of saying that the sale is subject to ancillary charges. So it means that, assuming we are not able to meet up to the further ancillary charges, then you are saying that this entire sale may not make sense, right? We have a right to interpret it that way, and so we have to remove ambiguity from that statement, remove ambiguity from that phrase, because it can read too much meaning to the entire transaction. A transaction about 100 million naira, and you're putting such phrase with so much vagueness. That didn't make sense to us. So you need to be able to ascertain, and then we have to also insist on the definition of those ancillary charges so that it is clear, all parties are clear on what you are going into, right? So that had to be very, very clear, and then we need to establish. So as a buyer of a property in Nigeria, you need to ascertain what the charges are at the point of buying and what the expected charges are after the purchase of that property. Now, the seventh question that you need to ask is, what are the covenants running with the property? What are the covenants? By covenants, I mean, what are the rules? What are the rules here that bind this property? Now, for a place like Abuja, where you have estate dominance, a lot of estates here in Abuja, and as a city that was purpose built and planned, you naturally see a lot of places. I mean, you have some places where the colors of the houses are white. You have places where the colors of the roofs are red. You have different types of, and then there's a level of uniformity for that particular area. There are areas where you can have a residential property. There are areas where you can have commercial activities, right? So all of those things are sorted. I mean, those are the covenants that bind that right. So for instance, you can go into an estate now, you are buying into an estate now, and you want to ask a question like, can I repaint my house from white to yellow, or can I change the exterior? These are some of the things that you need to understand or ascertain before buying a property, because you may have interest in changing from this to this, and after buying you realize that you won't be able to do so. And if that thing is critical to the purchase of that property, then at that point you may have purchased the wrong product. So that also has to be ascertained. What are the covenants running with the land or the property? That is really, really important. And number 8, or number 9 rather, is how old is the property? How old is the property? This is particularly when you're buying a property that has been used by somebody else, right? It's the reason this is important is because you would not love to just buy a property and in the next month you realize that, especially when you buy it during the dry season, and the moment the rain starts falling, you realize that the roof is leaking, because how old the house is will determine if the roof has experienced some level of dilapidation or not, right? So it won't make sense for you to buy a property no matter how much, and in 2 3 months, 4 5 months you are changing the entire roof of the house. That will not make sense. So if you can, try to determine how old the property is, because that will help you determine if you're going to make certain major changes or renovation in the house or not. All right, so that's pretty straight to the point. Number 10 is, how long do tenants stay in the place? Now this question makes more sense for somebody who is looking at buying the property for rental purposes. Now if the area doesn't make sense, the tenants won't stay there long, or if tenants don't stay there long, generally it means that something is wrong. It's possible that there is something that, or robbers usually, or the place is not generally secure, or it's possible that accessibility to the place doesn't make sense. But together, if tenants usually don't stay in the houses for long, then it means something is wrong that would make that thing continue until it changes. So particularly for somebody who's looking at rental income, and in fact, even you yourself, if somewhere that you're looking at buying as a home and tenants don't usually stay there for long, then if tenants don't usually stay there for long, there's a likelihood that you yourself may not like the place, and there's a reason that they are leaving. They're not staying for long. So that's also pretty much straightforward, and it is very, very good that you consider or ask such questions. Number 11 is, what level of government presence does the place have? The reason for this question is, for instance, I gave an example a moment ago. The fact there is an airport in this area, it means that government will definitely have interest in this area. So it means that most of the things in this area will first have to be standard. They're going to enjoy basic amenities. For instance, they will have to have light, right? So you need to understand, and also beyond the government presence, you also have to look at, for instance, if there's a government hospital close by, those are basic amenities that you may want to look at, and those amenities definitely will impact livelihood or living in such environment, right? Number 12 is, when will development commence? This is particularly for those who do off-plan deals. If you're someone who buys into off-plan properties, or by off-plan I mean either you buy and the company starts developing for you, or you buy it at a level where it's possibly at DPC level, and they've continued developing for you, finish it for you. However type the off-plan is, you may want to ascertain certain things from the stated in the document that helps you to ascertain when will development start, when is expected time of delivery, and when is expected time of allocation, and all of that. That is very important, right? And then the next question is there a water board or access to water? Now the question of water, sometimes it could be generally state-based. So I know that there are some parts of it, I'm not going to mention a state as well here, there's some parts of some states that don't have access to water. You may have to rely on government water, or you may have to really spend a lot of money to dig a borehole. And you know how important water is to any environment, right? So you need to establish, or you need to understand or know if this place will have a water issue, and also light issue, any other basic thing that's associated to helping people live as they would want to live comfortably in an environment. All right. Number 14 is, What is the plan with settling brokers and agents? This is very important. I've seen situations, a lot of situations where a transaction has been done and there's no concrete plan, or there's no concrete decision as to who is settling the agent, who is settling the buyer. And from experience, I know for a fact that some agents will rather let the entire transaction go down, make the entire transaction end without proceeding progressively or successfully, except they get their money. Right? While I'm not supporting the people who are doing that, it makes no sense. Every person who works should enjoy the benefit of his work. The point I'm just trying to make here is ascertain if you're giving the agent 5% as the buyer, or if the seller is the person settling the agent. That has to really be clarified. So the question of who is settling the agent or how much am I settling the agent is very important, and you need to establish that and possibly put that in your budget while you are negotiating, because the higher you're paying for the property, there's an almost certain guaranteed likelihood that the higher the percentage you are paying to the agent. So that will help you determine if this is your budget or it doesn't fit your budget. So the 15th question you need to ask whenever you're buying a property in Nigeria is it a flood prone area or is it a passageway? And these are two things. These are two issues in one. I remember there was a time that a church wanted to buy a property through us, and they had somewhere they were already interested in. So we were brought in to sort of do investigation and due diligence generally for the purchase of that property. But one of the very first things, the very first major reason that this could not work was because clearly it was a passageway. Now, some persons would have said, "Oh, buy it, block it." But the truth about it is, a serious government, as people would like to say, a pharaoh that knew not Joseph, could come around and say, "No, we're insisting on the right thing being done." And the right thing that should be done at that point is to pull down or destroy or demolish that property. At that point, you start hearing stuff like, "Oh, they're fighting the church, or they're demolishing properties, or this should not be done, or that shouldn't be done, or it's not right, or it's not fair," and all of that. So these are factors you must consider. And beyond that, as a matter of fact, this question is not necessarily the one that you ask the seller. This particular question, and some of the questions that we've already looked at, are questions that you need to ask people around, not necessarily the person that you are buying from, because the person you're buying from will definitely not tell you that it's a flood prone area or it's passageway or something, right? So some of them you can see for yourself, some others you need to ask questions about. So that's a very important, critical question to ask whenever you're buying a property in Nigeria. Okay, I think we've spent so much time already. I still have 10 other points, very important points to make, and I think I'm also trying not to go into so much details, because the details are really important. So in a bid not to sacrifice time on the altar of value and content, we'll have to do a part 2 of this, right? So that we'll talk about the other 10 in the next part, and they are also equally very, very important questions you may need to ask. So I'd encourage you to watch the part 2, where I'm going to talk about the remaining 10 questions that are very important that you ask whenever you're buying a property in Nigeria. Remember that this video is brought to you by Fortreal Rei Ltd, a real estate company here in Nigeria, and we bring you the best of real estate. We educate you so that you know how to safely and rightly invest in a city like Abuja. And then importantly, if you're yet to subscribe, do subscribe to the channel, like this video if you do, and then stay in touch. If you need land for appreciation purposes, lands that you want to buy that would definitely appreciate, and then houses that you're looking at for rental income, or someone you just want to retire to, we are the company to reach out. So ladies and gentlemen, see you. Make sure you watch the other part of this video, the second part of this video, where I will continue with the remaining 10 points or 10 questions that you need to ask whenever you're buying properties in Nigeria. Bye-bye.